Социальное партнерство – основные итоги и векторы развития. Наша сессия «Совершенствование подходов к предупреждению развития профессиональных заболеваний работников в различных отраслях экономики». Выражаю сразу благодарность всем участникам конференции за сотрудничество в вопросах социального страхования и обмена опытом в области предупреждения профзаболеваний работников. Вопрос предотвращения профессиональных заболеваний в настоящее время является особенно важным, так как это прежде всего связано с сохранением и укреплением здоровья работников. Мне очень приятно видеть за нашим столом, а также подключение в эфире представителей железнодорожного и воздушного транспорта, РЖД, Аэрофлот, Сибирь, представители Российских независимых профсоюзов работников угольной промышленности, Росуглепром, Ассоциации промышленников горно-металлургического комплекса Российской Федерации, специалистов в области производственной медицины, а также разрешите поприветствовать представителей Республики Беларусь, Узбекистан, Казахстан, Абхазии, Народной Республики, Донецкой Народной Республики и Луганской Народной Республики, кто принял участие в нашем сегодняшнем совещании. Важно, что сегодня предметом для обсуждения станут вопросы здоровья трудящихся, безопасности труда и внедрения новых программ технологий охраны здоровья лиц, работающих в условиях вредных и опасных производств. Думаю, что данная конференция на конференции будут обсуждены проекты и программы, которые мы на сегодняшний день уже апробировали в прошлом году, и планируем расширение этого пилотного проекта, расширение формата и привлечение новых отраслей в данную программу. Уверен, что данный формат послужит укреплению связей, контактов между государственными, между работниками, между работодателями и страховщиками. Всем желаю успехов. Так, и разрешите сразу представить слово Никитиной Елене Ивановне, руководителю Департамента организации страхования профессиональных рисков Фонда социального страхования, с темой реализации пилотного проекта по организации межведомственного взаимодействия в целях предупреждения профессиональных заболеваний и создания системы мониторинга состояния здоровья работников. Елена Ивановна, прошу.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники нашей конференции. Я благодарю участников за проявленный интерес к нашей сессии и за возможность немного рассказать, в целом рассказать о пилоте фонда по предупреждению профессиональных заболеваний. Следующий слайд. Следующий слайд. Кто перелистывает слайды, пожалуйста, включите следующий слайд. Пока перелистывают слайд, я в целом расскажу о статистике фонда. В 2021 году в Российской Федерации по данным информационно-аналитической системы фонда зарегистрировано более 4 миллионов предприятий в качестве страхователей по обязательному социальному страхованию от несчастных случаев на производстве и профессиональных заболеваний. Численность застрахованных по данному виду страхования у нас составляет более 49 миллионов человек, и более 20% застрахованных работают в условиях вредных или опасных производственных факторов. Следующий слайд. Мне дали перелистывать. В целом статистика фонда говорит об устойчивом тренде снижения производственного травматизма и профессиональной заболеваемости. Если сравнивать цифры 2021 года к 2017 году, то мы видим снижение производственного травматизма в целом по всей стране более чем на 15%. Так, в 2017 году количество страховых случаев, зарегистрированных в информационной системе фонда, было более 42 тысяч. Из них несчастные случаи с легким исходом более 30 тысяч, несчастные случаи с тяжелым исходом более 5 тысяч, несчастные случаи со смертельным исходом 1620 и профессиональных заболеваний чуть более 5 тысяч. В 2021 году Мы зарегистрировали более 36 тысяч страховых случаев, из них легких случаев чуть более 27 тысяч, несчастных случаев с тяжелым исходом 3603, несчастных случаев со смертельным исходом 1530.
And professional disease 4018. So if we look at professional disease, so the main diagnosis in 2021 as a neurosense loss of hearing, vibrational disease, radiolopathy, infectional and parasite diseases, professional bronchitis, and pneumonitis. So during 5 years, the diagnosis during 5 years were not changed. Infectional and parasitary diseases incidence increased. COVID is considered as professional disease, included into the group of infectional diseases. Vibrational disease and neurosense loss of hearing occupy the first place. So we decided to analyze the branches where we can see most frequently neurosense loss of hearing, and the air transport and railway transport provide neurosense loss of hearing due to professional noise. So we subdivided these activities between the insurers and found out a certain trend of the same insurers to availability of professional disease. Jointly with the employees, we discussed this trend and suggested in 2021 to participate in the pilot project for prevention of professional disease. So such pilot project was implemented in 2021. It was implemented within the framework of the government decree 401 for organization of interdepartmental interaction for prevention of occupational diseases and creation of monitoring system of the state of employees. The most objectives of the project were reduction of professional disease and morbidity due to prophylactic treatment of employees with early revelation of the signs of harmful productional factor and creation of the system of health protection. How the project was implemented. At the first stage, early revelation of signs of the influence of harmful factors to the results of the state of health, then prophylactic treatment. The third one is repeated medical survey after treatment, and the fourth one was assessment of the results of treatment, monitoring of the state of health. And now we decided to expand our pilot project. According to the decree, such measures were fulfilled. Prophylactic measures in the centers of rehabilitation of the fund. So the employees were sent there with additional paid holiday for the period of prophylactics in the rehabilitation centers. There so the payment for the railway and air fees to the for prophylactics and medical surveys were conducted in the centers of rehabilitation. Participants of the pilot project were the following departments: Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Ministry of Transport of the Russian Federation, the fund, and territorial organs. The employers were Aeroflot, air companies, Russian companies, Sibir, and Russian railways. So we signed agreements with the medical organization and the centers of fund rehabilitation. We have two centers of rehabilitation, one center of Blue River and the second Omsk one. On the basis of multiple results of medical surveys conducted in accordance with the normative acts regulating medical examinations of employees and airway and railway employees, on the basis, the medical organizations conducted a selection of employees who need prophylactics of occupational disease. The main criteria for standing to rehabilitation treatment were the data of automatic survey. The methods of neurosense loss of hearing, clinical recommendations were used for prophylactics. Clinical recommendations of the Ministry of Public Health of 2018 were used. In 2021, for implementation of this pilot project, it was envisaged to use 18.5 million rubles. And the fund has allotted 15 million rubles, and this volume of financing allowed us to conduct prophylactic work for 95 employees. 14 employees of Aeroflot, 11 employees of Siberia, and 70 workers of railways. 39 people underwent prophylactic treatment altogether in Blue River and in Omsk Central Prophylactic Center. After treatment, we conducted repeated medical examination of employees, and we have found out that for railway transport employees and 70 employees selected for rehabilitation of professional disease, 43 employees showed improvement of audiometric picture. 26 employees had dynamics without changes. For air transport, their hearing threshold was reduced in 19 persons, and one employee displayed worse audiometric results. 62 persons will have they displayed improvement of audiometric factor. 13% of employees displayed indicators without changes. So such good results, as well as improvement of the psycho-emotional state of employees, allowed to make decided to make a conclusion on the results of analysis of monitoring of the public state health of employees and efficiency of the pilot project for organization of interdepartment interaction with the purpose of prophylactic of professional disease will help us to improve the state of health of the employees. And we would like to continue the implementation of the pilot project, expanding its capabilities for the employees of mining industry. Thank you for attention. Thank you, Elena Ivanovna. Your presentation is based on the results of the pilot project from our partners of medical institutions, and I'd like to give the floor to Elena Evgenievna Adeninskaya, head of the Research Center of Professional Pathology and Hygiene of Labor of Civil Aviation of the Central Clinical Hospital of Civil Aviation Company, for assessment of the influence of prophylactic of professional disease on the state of the health of the employees within the framework of the pilot project. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this project. since the issues of prophylactic and hearing loss are raised during many years throughout the world, and finally we have paid attention to people who do not have any violations of hearing, but still need assistance for hearing, which is important for a social life and work of employees. The Central Clinical Hospital was participating in fulfillment of this pilot project. From the onset of the analysis of the documents, the objective of were already enumerated in the previous presentation. I'd like to dwell on two objectives which were implemented during the work on this pilot project. First of all, is creation of the system of monitoring of the state of employees' health in order to analyze the state of health. It is necessary to have united criteria on the basis of which could be used for analysis, and using this criteria we could find out if there are any positive results of treatment or our project provides negative results. So for creation of the monitoring system, we started the working out of unified criteria, which was used for assessment and efficiency of the data. And we also conducted assessment of efficiency of conducting prophylactic measures of occupational disease for employees. It is important to see not only the present day situation, but also in 6 months or in 12 months. If the hearing is not worsened, then we can say that this work was done with good results. As we have mentioned already, the participants of the pilot project in aviation sphere were employees of Aeroflot company and Siberia company. Altogether, 25 persons participated in this project. The slide shows the main criteria of selection which were used for selection of employees for hearing protection. The first criteria, the main criteria, the employees which were selected for the project didn't have any clinically developed worsening of hearing. So the average figures are 11 and 25 decibel, which is the first clinical changes. The second criteria for use were factor of hearing threshold at the frequency of 3 and 4 kilohertz, the signs of influence of noise on hearing, and we must check hearing precisely at this frequency. Why these figures were used? We would like to say that hearing of people who are contacting with noise using the frequencies should be worse than in the same age group. So in this way we have suggested the criteria of 30 decibel and more. If one or two criteria were combined, or one of the criteria, we used additional criteria which are presented for higher age, and taking into account the length of the length of flight, thousands of hours.
It is well known that in pathogenesis also some changes in the health. Among the workers selected for this pilot project from air industry, the first two criteria were coincided in 36% of the workers. The first criteria, before clinics, 52%, and high frequency transformations, 84%. As I said, with the present only one of the criteria, we used also additional criteria checkups. The workers selected for this project in 72% who flight Boeing aircraft and some 50 robots and others. We see that the workers who took the course of rehabilitation had 27.6 age of working age, mid-age 53 years, and the flight time 15,000 hours. That's considerable figures. I also like to say that the workers, like for that, had up to 4 or over somatic illnesses or diseases. At the same time, at least 2 diseases were vascular and cardiovascular, as usually so high pressure, sclerotic transformations in vessels. So then endocrinical diseases were present. I'd like to draw attention to such a fact of risk as excessive weight. Only 16% were within the norms, and 84% had excessive mass of the body of first degree, which we consider as an additional risk factor to worsen the hearing abilities. We see that medical rehabilitation in our establishment were first directed to remove symptoms which cause the transformations. Even at the clinical level, take account the frequencies, we see that the workers form a special level of noise, and that level of noise prevents them from proper working, and it brings down the hearing threshold at one or another frequencies. It means that whether the hearing abilities are maintained or worse, become worse. Even if the hearing ability is maintained, we say that rehabilitation was not in vain. The next factor to achieve a long curative consequence, we will check the workers at least within 1, 2, or up to longer years. We speak about the professional activity, longevity. We applied non-medical treatment, not drug treatment. We do not dwell upon them because it will be presented by other speakers, but criteria of efficiency which were selected were are seen on the slide. First 2 of these criteria have been analyzed only now because we received them after their treatment immediately. The next 2 criteria is for longer period of check of observation. The first criteria is lessening of threshold of hearing on one or another frequencies after the treatment. I'd like to say that it is well known, and we proved that by experience, and our colleagues told us that various factors cause different changes in the hearing abilities at various frequencies. That's why in our analysis we used methods of statistics which allowed us to assess the change of hearing ability at each of the frequencies. If we saw the change of hearing at one or another frequencies, we assessed as a positive consequence. Also, we paid attention to the threshold of hearing ability, this improvement of hearing at the frequency of 3 and 4 kilohertz. It also depends upon the production noise. That means we checked how the high frequencies affect the hearing abilities of workers in noise environment. We also use such statistical methods as variation statistics, so middays, then dispersion, then tested factors, then we use criteria of Fisher criteria, then parametric measurements. The results of medical rehabilitation demonstrate us that we got statistical significant effect after the treatment of medical rehabilitation. Members of flight crews which took part in this project, 82% or 76% incidents improved their hearing by 1 or 2 frequencies, and with 24% of incidents or cases we did not see any changes in the hearing abilities, but it testifies to the fact that it doesn't speak to the fact that program was non-applicable if the hearing abilities was maintained at previous level. When we analyzed the mid-dimension, then the threshold of hearing ability, then we saw that at least 14.1 decibels are the threshold that right ear was better than a left ear. So it was important for us to assess further on at what frequencies we see the improvement of the hearing ability. At high frequencies, which depend on the noise environment, or when they speak to each other, which are important to radio exchanges for social life. And we see that in the short-term rehabilitation, members of flight crews, in 72% incidents, it was improved of hearing abilities at frequencies, at high frequencies, from 3 to 8 kilohertz in comparison to the working level. So, using by Fisher criteria, we saw that among the speaking frequencies, we got results at 2 kilohertz. We know the 2 kilohertz, it's one of the basic frequencies which pilots use in radio exchange. So the loss of that hearing of 2 kilohertz means that loss of speaking abilities. Now we see that the improvements were in high frequencies, and in speaking frequencies 2 kilohertz were the most important. And on our slide, and we demonstrated to you, the statistical significant thresholds were maintained during the after treatment. Results of medical rehabilitation testify to the fact to us that the less transformation in the hearing ability were before rehabilitation, when the work was selected correctly according to our criteria, and then the improvement of the hearing ability were in greater degree. For example, 34% improved with before clinical, and 17% with those who had were some disturbances with hearing abilities. And positive dynamics were observed in the early period, in early age, and with less pathologies. Actually, we see that less effective treatment without clear seen dynamics were observed with the older age pilots with the longer working period. And regarding aviation industry, I'd like to say that we saw some correspondence between the time of flight and the summary listening of flight hearing abilities. We saw a correlation that after 15,000 of flight time, it gives us good results. Over 15,000 when members of flight crew has then hearing threshold becomes sustainable or the same. Regarding the possibles of efficiency of this method, we consider it a very good beginning, which further on should be continued in a longer term period, and it should be expanded to cover other industries, other branches of industry. Regarding other industries, we may use the same criteria, depending maybe on the harmful environment or level of noise. We should enter some corrections, but it tells us that the higher the level of noise, the earlier we will see the transformation in hearing abilities. Thank you for possibility to take part in this discussion. I am prepared to work with you further. So these are our preliminary results. Thank you, Yelena Evgenievna, for such detailed and serious presentation of the results of this pilot project. I even couldn't understand how a person should look like who will not accept the results of your presentation. I cannot imagine such a person. So how these results are being applied by the transport workers, by the insurers, what pilot project present to these organizations, because we strive for achieving two objectives as a minimum. First, health of population, and longevity of professional activity of people, especially in such branch as aviation industry, where training of these specialists is very high. The cost of their training is very high. So allow me to give the floor to Trunkina Yulia Alexandrovna, is the head of the health protection of air company Siberia regarding professional diseases with workers of air industry, practice of preventive measures and their results. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this floor. I'd like to thank you for participating in such a participation in this interesting project. We are prepared to take part in such projects, and they are prepared to continue this cooperation further. Excuse me for interrupting you. We, together with you, suppose a continuation of cooperation with you. We will not limit ourselves by only this event. We suppose we like the previous project. We like cooperating. We love cooperating with the insurance company, and we like such events. Regarding prevention of the disease in Siberia company, the problem of professional diseases was very acute and serious even today. Although our industry is equipped with such aircraft of major international organizations which produce such machines, we do not have national aircraft who surpass the level of noise, but still professional diseases are still a serious problem, and we carry out much work on professional diseases. Of course, regarding professional diseases, we think about those who work with noise equipment at the initial period of their professional work. Now many people start collecting statistical documents on professional diseases and the noise environment, but it's still very important work on preventive professional diseases among our pilots. This topic will be very serious for us and urgent. In the company, we have over 1,250 pilots. As you were quite right, that training of pilots is a very expensive treatment. Each pilot is a valuable worker, and initially it costs the budget and time of the state and Institute of Higher Learning. Then he comes to us. We train him, upgrade him for 8 months, and spend 2 million rubles to upgrade his knowledge. And then we maintain his professionals on specific simulator machines. That's why for us it's very important to maintain his professional good health and professionals, because we have many pilots with long working years, and of course worsening of less hearing ability is neurosensoric loss of hearing. And majority of companies use contemporary modern aircraft, but still the hearing abilities go down. We understand that it is influenced not only by noise of the aircraft, but all accompanying events, such as, for example, the age of the pilot, urban noise, and other surrounding noises, which measures employer could adopt to maintain health of his employees. In 2021, in April 2021, we established a service of monitoring of health. We decided that we should check the corporate health of our company and regular make checkups. This service has been working only in April, but through the service, some 1,500 flight crew members passed through that, and we saw very good results. Commission comfortably prepares pilots for their regular checkups. It lessen the burden of regular medical commissions because much work we took upon ourselves. So the loyalty of our workers to the company increased because they understand that company takes care of their health and understand that a person himself does not have enough time to care about his health and will go annually to a clinic to make his checkup. So we enforce that medical checkup and it produces very good effects. Regarding medical flight expert commission, everybody knows that pilots are checked very seriously on annual basis, a very numerous commission, it's a big commission, and of course many doctors take part in it. If somebody finds some initial indices or of some deviations, then this expert commission takes measures to understand how to apply rehabilitation measures. We use rehabilitation, we use specific resorts. 362 pilots were passed through that resort area. It's very popular for pilots because it allows them to have medical check-ups and be prepared for the regular medical check-up, improve their health, and the improvement of health takes place within 21 days. It's very good. And many pilots, so we have many pilots of good age. It's various resorts within the Russian Federation. Also, we have voluntary medical insurance in which all the company workers take part on ground service and flight crews. We maintain health way of life. We have a sport corporate team for those participation for the training. They have additional time. They provided, but the corporation provides them additional time. Of course, there were good government decrees. I will not dwell upon them. Thank you very much for the invitation. I was pleased to work with you. We did not have any problems in cooperation with the social insurance program. We'll be glad to work further, to cooperate further with such a project, because this project will allow us to bring down the material losses of the companies, of the country, because thanks to the maintenance of health, we maintain health condition, we reduce expenses for sick leaves and so on. So it's very important to take care about health of our workers, even sometimes force them to make check-up, because not everybody likes to go to check-up and pass through rehabilitation program. Thank you very much. We'll be glad to take further participation.
I think this is related also with the safety of flights. So that special control is conducted in order to find out the physical and psychological state of health of pilots. Since hundreds of passengers are sitting behind the back of pilots, it's particularly important also for mining industry and hazardous production. As to the cost of the pilot project, I heard that the cost of prophylaxis is for 5 million rubles. I think that in Siberia they have less figures spent for rehabilitation. So some additional expenses are also incurred. I think this figure is lower. I think that in Aeroflot this figure is higher. So now the floor is given to a professional disease prevention in the Aeroflot company. Lednyov Maxim Yurievich, head of the company. Dear colleagues, I'd like to thank for participation in this pilot project, and what measures can be taken as employers for reduction of our professional diseases? First of all, I'd like to tell you about Aeroflot company. The company is leader of civil aviation of Russia. So the company is based in the Moscow airport Sheremetyevo. The second hub in Krasnoyarsk is open in 2021. It has 4 branches in St. Petersburg, Kaliningrad, Perm, and Vladivostok. It is included into 3 largest. It is one of the 3 largest carriers of Europe on the number of flights. So speaking about prevention of professional disease, we are trying to use the measures of different levels. First of all, Julia said that the new aircraft produce less noise, so that both pilots and other employees are not subjected to a high level of noise. So the level of noise should be less and less. So this is the whole chain of civil aviation branch. So our aircraft which are being produced, the level of noise in the zone of work is less than several years ago. Dozens of years ago. The second thing is personal protection means all the personnel is using active protection, hearing protection appliances for the pilots in order to reduce their level of noise, and time control. If first signs of professional disease are revealed, or worsening of hearing ability, then flight time should not increase 80 hours during the month. The other thing is to conduct control over the observance of the length of vacations, and it is forbidden to replace vacations by money compensation. For flight personnel, resort treatment is of great importance. First of all, the pilots are sent for such rehabilitation. But so rehabilitation measures and resource and also resort treatment is provided. So I will tell you that before the pilot project, from 400 to 900 employees were sent for sanitary treatment during the year throughout Russia. It was also financed by the money of the fund. And now I'd like to speak about prevention of professional disease. According to the decree of the government of the Russian Federation, starting from 2021-401 on implementation of the pilot project, is used for prevention of professional disease. I'm not a doctor, so I cannot provide the results of such monitoring. We don't have negative dynamics as a result of treatment. I'd like to say that we would like to participate in the project, which is working on permanent basis rather than pilot project. Your suggestion is discussed now at various levels about introduction into the federal legislation the norms of prophylactics of professional disease using the Fund of Social Insurance Fund. So, Maxim Yurich and Yulia Alexandrovna, I'd like to ask a question for both of you. In your presentations, you said that you, as a company, you are providing all the participants influence of the harmful factor by means of personal protection appliances. I have never seen that air personnel is not provided their professional protection means. Why don't they use such? Why don't they use such personal protection means? So air hostesses, for instance, don't wear such earphones. In the cabin, they have 80 decibel level of noise, so this is not harmful level. And, issue number 2, as to pilots, according to methodological recommendations, we find out that for a fraction of decibel are higher than the so the level of harmful influence of noise is produced by a fraction of decibels. Julia told us already that it was easier to do in aircraft, in Soviet aircraft, and for helicopters. Surely there were higher levels of noise there, but now Rospotrebnadzor last year has issued new recommendations. Very rarely aircraft such as 2146 increases their noise level for pilots. We conducted a lot of calculations, and we could see that the company never registered and didn't force the pilots to work in harmful conditions. Julia, would you like to add something? The problems are the same in all the companies. So all the pilots during the flight are wearing earphones in order to reduce noise level. And the earphones also different depending on the level of protection. So conducting the calculation of noise level, we could see that our aircraft, old aircraft, had very high noise level. As far as I could understand from your calculations, that the pilots are flying more hours, but air hostesses are not working for a long time, then they stop their work. No, we have a lot of air hostesses who are working for many years. The first thing is safety. So they should have very good hearing. So we are using much money in order to protect the pilots and air hostesses from the level of noise. Pilots are very highly paid employees, and they invested into their pension. Thank you. As it has been mentioned by Lena, the participant of our pilot project was a transport industry. So we had several speakers. Railway transport also contributed to this pilot project. So on the main results of the pilot project on prophylactics of professional disease in Russian railways is the topic of the presentation of Gutarika Selina Mikhailova, head of the Department of Medical Safety of Railways. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this pilot project. It was really very interesting. I'd like to dwell on the Russian Railways Company and railway medicine. Railway medical services and regular checkups for employees has experience of 180 years. We conducted medical checkups both for influence of harmful factors for employees of railways. So in general, the main tasks are protection and improvement of health of employees and expansion of professional personnel, a risk of targeted approach to prophylactics of professional disease, control of professional health, and reduction of the capability, the reduction of the accidents on railways. We are conducting 1.5 million checkups of employees on annual basis. We have 2,500 doctors and specialists and over 20 doctors involved in professional pathology. Starting from 35 years old, all employees are examined in order to reduce the factors of professional disease due to harmful factor. The conditions of work in Russian railways is shown on this slide. The total number of the employees is reduced, but the workers who are working in noisy conditions is not changing greatly. they have both physical loads and also level of noise. The only thing is what we achieved is less vibration. So I'm very grateful to our production medicine and pilot project, which helped us to revise some of the factors. So the blue line shows the professional occurrence of disease per 1,000 employees of Russian Railways. Orange line shows the level of professional level and level of professional vibrational disease and level of professional disease of radiolopathia. So professional disease is being changed. We have high level of professional morbidity. So it was a surprise for us that vibrational disease displays a higher level. For us, statistically, it has become statistics is a very important thing, and the calculated figures shows that vibration disease is also a problem. So classical place is occupied by neutral sensor, worsened hearing ability, radiolopathia, and vibrational disease. So these are the three types of professional diseases in Russian Railways. We hope that new motors which will be manufactured will produce less harmful factors, and future production of such trains will produce more means of protection for the crews of such trains. I will not dwell on the different stages of the pilot project. So everything was provided in the previous presentations. 70% participated in pilot project. So this personnel is very valuable, who have a good experience. So loss of such employees is very painful for the company. So for very difficult routes, we are using personnel of over 35 years. Our medical service pays great importance to background pathology, which influences the professional disease. So there's a direct influence effect, such as 47% of employees are smokers, 72.8% of personnel have excessive mass, of 48% have arterial hypertension, and 41.4% atherosclerosis, and 24.3% have lipid exchange violation.
Of course, we have resort treatment, but this year we changed the program of volunteer insurance company. All of them insured up to 800,000 rubles, when then permanent medical services also is included. So we apply some reproductive methodology and psychotherapy, including the issues of work with the emotional environment as important factor, because later in 2021 year, the professional stress also causes some pathologies. And speaking about this transformation, these changes for some lipid transformation, sclerosis, smoking, they're also important, and also they influence the vascular organs. So regarding the post dynamics, where 61% of workers, only when one had the same or some worsening of the state of health, only 1 year this program was applied, and we applied this rehabilitation, and next regular checkup will check their condition, and we will observe what's the hearing ability of these workers. But actually, in principle, when we were speaking about neurosensoric hearing ability, it's not only professional disease, but loss of hearing ability because loss or worsening because vascular part also takes important part. I come to the conclusion that we should continue this program, and preventive measures are very important, and especially in hearing ability. They are not paid by sick leave, on the basis of sick leave, but a person should pay some time and money for improving the hearing ability. So application of pilot project and continuation of this regulation of rehabilitation and restoration, medical treatment in the professional life is important. It improves the whole state of health. It influences the conditions of work, and so thank you very much for this project. We hope that it will continue developing further. Thank you. Your notions about vibration are a serious factor which affects the work inside the industry. We spoke about that at the beginning of the initial phase. Yes, the matter is that it's important that we analyze the situation and we change our approaches to the definition of professional disease, not in the overall number of workers, but we revealed some specific consequences, and of course vascular diseases also were important. For us, it's not a surprise, because vibration in the 20th century, when we discussed this project, was a very serious factor throughout Russian Federation. In 2021, it proved that the factor is still the same. It's still less than infectious diseases of COVID type. So vibration surpassed the neurosensoric reason for loss of hearing ability. We will continue determining the zoological task for the next phase of our pilot project, if you suggest some approaches to treat vibration diseases as an important, because in other branches of industry it is also of considerable importance. Thank you, Ekaterina Mikhailovna. We worked very densely, cooperated with your employees. They are very in contact. We did not have any doubts regarding the preparation and the working for preventive work. I'd like to give the floor. I'll have the floor to medical establishments which took part in this pilot project. Going back to the presentation of Alena Ivanovna, Yelena, in addition to employees in medical establishment who employed the recommendation in the system of preventive measures, also some other subdivisions of service took part, for example, some doctors. Это Степана Евгения Валерьевна, one of them. He's deputy director on medical part of rehabilitation center and the fund which situated in Moscow region. She agreed to take part in our work. We speak about contemporary approaches to preventive professional diseases of railway and air company workers. They did not have before that work. Within framework of pilot project, Evgeny Ivan, have the floor. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'd like to express thanks for this possibility to take part in this project, and I'd like to draw attention to the work of preventive measures as one of the main directions for in the policy of the state is increasing potential of the working potential, labor potential concept, preservation or maintenance of public health, and reducing the diseases as an important factor of production facility. First, the potential, which developed, helps to develop economic. In 2019, the president approved the strategy on development of public health in the Russian Federation up to 2025. And this strategy determined main direction as practice, including, first of all, improvement of system of maintenance of health of the workers, then checking and prevention of professional diseases, and also organization of permanent monitoring of the public health of workers who are employed in industries of with harmful environment, and also organization of preventive measures and development of system of the preventive measures. I should underscore that in the process of working period, the worker is affected by industrial environment, and they cause negative consequences, and it does not die. We do not doubt that these consequences are unavoidable. You cannot work without them, even in those industries which apply state-of-the-art technology and modern equipment and high-quality production, medical treatment. Still, there is a problem of noise. So it is important to organize preventive measures of professional diseases. It should be a system, as a medical system, as a non-medical system, which is directed towards lessening of risk or the development of deviation in health in the process of labor activity. So the main tasks are the timely removal of pathologies, pathology changes as early as possible, and early preventive measures. The pilot project is number 401 of March 18, 2021, determine the time period from 1st April 2021 up to 31st December 2021. Also, the objective of the project. At the first phase, there were requirements for some what needed to organize this process, to involve employers and workers, and to determine criteria which were determined by medical establishments after the results of the medical checkups of the workers, and also observation of their health. And again, had already said that they carried out necessary research, which included the observation of workers by specialists, for some general doctors, then check the hearing abilities, other abilities of a person, and overall clinical analysis of blood, and criteria were established, and again reported about them. Then, in connection with that, when we determined participants of this project and which fall within the criteria, we informed the employer, and the employer, together with our center, coordinated the time schedule for treatment of the workers who were on the list for the treatment. For each participant of the project, jointly with the preventive center, we made a plan of preventive measures, which included all preventive measures, which include not only methodology, but means being applied in this treatment of professional diseases, and they were directed towards exclusion of risks and bringing down to the minimum the risks. Individual plan in obligatory manner was coordinated with the employer himself, with the patient himself, at the phase of formation of making the plan, and further down and with the center. Second phase, directly in prevention of professional diseases, and in a number of the training center of our organization, we had training for 39 official workers of Aeroflot and railways. All of them showed some consequences of noise, and period for preventive measures was 18 days. Speaking about pathogenesis of losing of hearing ability, this is vascular problems, and we revealed that as a rule, these disturbances were brain, blood, vascular, and other vascular create problem, and it is caused by specifics of blood supply to the hearing organs of a person, of an individual, and internal ear is supplied by one artery with a small diameter, and this results in the fact that the state of the hearing ability depends directly on the state of this central and cerebral blood dynamics, and small deviation or some disturbances in blood supply cause hypoxia and cause disturbances in other abilities. Then professional hearing ability depends upon various chronic diseases, and mainly arterial high tension. Would like to say that all the patients or participants in the project, according to dynamic observation, showed various dynamic deviation in blood supply, blood circulation, high pressure, sclerosis of aorta, and brain vessels. Then we produced individual plans for each patient, and preventive measures were directed to eliminate timely these disturbances and stop the further development. We also took part other diseases, and we treated high pressure. We tracked also other consequences, for example, in the area of neck, not to improve the blood circulation, and some degenerative and various genetic deviations, and it helps to change the methodology. Regarding the work of the center, we worked with improvement of the blood circulation in area of ears, and we also checked the state or quality of blood. We prescribed various medicals, various drugs, some hydrochloride, and others drugs. Regarding medicals, we used reflexology, transcoronal therapy, magnet therapy, ultra high frequency electrophoresis, various kinds of massage, classic, punctual, health, sport exercises, including the water application, basins, swimming. All along the course in preventive measures, the patient was observed by a multidisciplinary team of doctors of various spheres, therapists, neurologists, hearing abilities, then physiotherapists and others. After the completion of the preventive measures of complex, then information sent after the results of the treatment and after the assessment of the number of procedures and on the development plan, all those data were sent to the medical organizations, which determined whether it is we need to continue this treatment. And after the results of the monitoring, we took the decision. I'd like to say that after the initial phase at our center, the participants of the project told us that they have feel themselves better. The indices of their blood pressure and others improved. Then they had very good overall condition, and it proves that our treatment was effective. And after we sent the patient back to the work, we maintained contact with the corporation, and so we came to the conclusion that we can make the conclusion that prevention of professional diseases in air and railway industries is of greatest economic and social importance, as the state of health is connected with the working ability of the population, and revelation and the checking of professional disease, if it is not made timely, will increase the expenses of the state on mental health and especially on early retirement. So the basic principle in preventive professional diseases with workers of these industries was the modern treatment, application of modern processes, and the earliest possible checking of worsening of hearing abilities concerns the prevention of loss of medical of hearing ability, and to maintain the working ability of the workers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Evgenia Valerievna.
Thank you, Evgenia Valerievna. So I understand that you have multidisciplinary medical employees employed in this project. So I can see that you are using various means for implementation of individual program of rehabilitation, which was determined for each participant. The only thing I'd like to add that the purpose of protection of long length of employment. So we are speaking not only about transport industry, but we are also interested in different branches of industry. So now the break will be till 1:50 Moscow time. continue our conference of the fund. So we will jointly with the Ministry of Labor and Employment, we are preparing a new project. Today in the Social Insurance Fund are 4 million insurers insured, about 49 million persons employed in industry, and 20%, it's a big figure, in harmful conditions. So at present we have, in structure of our insurance cases, we have 75% of accidents, 10% of severe results, and 12% of professional disease and lethal cases, 4% of lethal cases in the structure. The main sources of injury is inadequate organization of the process. So there's nothing new in that. The efforts which the insured are taking and the number of accidents is reduced. The main insurance cases in the activity of industries, altogether there are 36,169 insured cases. So the main spheres are mining, trade, construction of buildings, plant growing, food production, water supply, education, warehouses, water treatment, etc. Altogether, 1,530 accidents with lethal cases took place in construction, 17%, mining, 11.2%, pipelines, 9%, water supply, 7.9%, and plant growing, over 5.5%. Professional diseases, 4,000 cases in 2021. So what spheres are mining? 33.9, public health 23, metallurgical production almost 10%. So brings us about to the conclusion that in professional disease and in accidents, we should pay particular attention to production of metallurgical industry and mining as the most risky branches, which bring about a lot of injuries and professional diseases. So class of professional risks and frequency of injuries. Anthracite production, aluminium, raw materials, enrichment of iron ore. Yes, there's nothing new here. The coefficient of the frequency of professional disease. The greatest number is in enrichment and production of aluminium, as well as extraction of coking oil, coking, and anthracite production. Coming back to professional diseases in the main diagnosis in the Russian Federation, I have noted that last year, first place was occupied by infectional diseases connected with COVID, which displayed growth from 9% in 2020. Before that, we had only 2%. So then it grown to 26. Neurosensor hearing loss is occupying second place. Vibrational disease 21%. We are paying attention to the fact that in addition to neurosensor loss of hearing, we should also pay attention to vibrational radiopathy, professional bronchitis. The entire list of professional disease, which is including to professional risks, and in each branch we should control such risks. Speaking about expansion of the pilot project, we are speaking about the use of foundation, which was built in 2021. We are analyzing insurance cases in the Russian Federation, and we can see that we should attract. We should develop very serious approach to mining and production and coal production. Number of insured organizations which are conducting active work. In 2021, the number of the injured includes 1.5 thousand people, 600 cases of accidents, 60 persons with lethal case, and 64 persons with professional disease. The economic part of expenses is displayed on the presentation. 20,000 of injuries. So we have a lot of people who develop professional disease. And the conditions of production shows that the number of people will grow, and we should pay much attention to prevent prophylactical diseases in order not to increase the number of persons due to professional disease. Coal industry in 2021. Altogether, we had 964 professional diseases. Radiculopathology, neurosense loss of hearing, professional bronchitis, which I have mentioned before. Also breathing and other cases. The main professions are those who are involved in mining industry. So this, I just cited statistical data. And you should pay attention to those who need special attention. The conditions of production are approximately the same. The approaches to labor protection are different. So this slide shows that development of professional diseases from 110 to 17 cases in different mines.
900 of professional diseases connected with such factors. We subdivide into the kinds of disease and pathological groups. Yes, so this is the slide I mentioned. As of today, the fund actively finances program of preventive measures in production facilities, but unfortunately, we cannot finance in preventive degree prevention of professional diseases, although there are money in coal industry in 2021 made over 1 billion rubles, 131 million. Yes, preventive measure as an individual measure takes in costs for preventive measures up to 40% nearly, but prevention as a direction of work, and send people for medical treatment in this title of expenses is not foreseen. Now regarding structure, 29.5% means of individual protection, 19.5% are equipment for safe work, 17.5% is resort treatment. The next branch, which we offer to discuss here as part of this pilot project, is activities in the metal smelting. It is characterized by the 10.5 insurers, and there are 735.5 thousand workers, recipient 38 patients, and number of incidents in 2021, 2014. These 2014 persons are subject into incidents, 133, with little result 35, and professional diseases 691. Regarding ACVED, we made the diagram, but just to see this picture by analysis, by diagnosis of professional diseases. It's the same professional disease, pneumoconiosis, neurosensoric loss of hearing aid, then shoulder muscles diseases, then professional locomotive, machine operator, miner, and others who directly are accounted in statistics. Then I hope that we will discuss today who should be still included on the list by professional occupation, by organizations. Again, there are deviations in this diagram demonstrated up from 69 up to 14 in different organizations. There's a different number of revealed professional diseases. Now pass to this next. Now by structure of prevention of lethal incidents, as a basic article of expenses on this branch, it's in metal smell, it's individual measures of protection, only 31%, and then resort services and treatment, 24.5%, and pre-retirement age 51%, 21%. Currently, the fund, jointly with the Ministry of Labor, as well as our social partners, we discussed the following possibility: to expand pilot project and to cover cover two more industries, is coal and metal smelting. We plan for the next year, if we have receive support through official papers, we will increase the money payment to compensate for treatment, including the vacation, the travel expenses, and the checkup of the results as in 2021, but to provide possibility that to a greater number of people and maintain the work with the transport industry and expand it to cover metal smelting and mining industries. So in a couple of words, that issue which we suggest to move forward for discussion at today's meeting. Now, do you have questions? No questions? Then let's continue this discussion. It's difficult for me to determine, Ivan Ivanovich, what topic will you take, but raise, but the fact that we discuss the involvement or expansion of the pilot program to cover your industry, if you don't mind, I give it to Ivan Ivanovich Mokhlachuk, chairman of Rosugleprof trade union. Good afternoon, the participants of the meeting, Sergey Ivanovich. As usual, I'll tell you what is the main problem for us. The first and the foremost for us, for your understanding, some specifics. It's mountain conditions, mining conditions. We cannot do with them something different. They are the one which were created by God, and as far back as million upon millions, and we work with them. First. Second, our specifics that we do not have permanent working places. They are in permanent movement, because when we remove subsoil resources, we have a complex tunnels, which head walls. We move them permanently after we work out the soil. It's hundreds upon hundreds of metal equipment, hydraulic equipment, and others. So when we take out coal, there are always new factors. So diseases of lungs, because there is dust. We have various kinds of soil which are different. There are archaeolite, hydrolites, and other, then plus vibration diseases, because we work with metal. Metal is very rigidly connected, and when the metal moves or works, and when the aggregate moves forward, it produces a vibration which affects a person, because a person is inside that mechanism, inside the machine. So in order, you see, for example, we have tables, we sit at the table. If, for example, if the table is the floor, it's the soil. Our table, it's the ceiling. So we should feel we have subsoil, and then the ceiling, and the plus vibrator. So under such difficult conditions, dense condition, vibration, dust, and so on, noise, we have they cause loss of hearing ability, and blood disease, and others. Lungs, we have 150,000 workers who work underground, then are in class 3 by hazardous conditions. So it goes without question that these conditions influence the working of miners, the workers, and after we work underground, we become in easier conditions. If after 15 years underground you can work from somewhere in the north, you have the right for your retirement. But if you work 25 years underground, you should have more. But for example, if there are machine operators, then some perforators and others, after some period of work, they become professionally ill. So lungs, respiration, hearing ability, and vibration, noise, then always uncomfortable position of the body. I cannot tell about myself. For example, I see. I look like a regular person, but I lived many years underground. I was a machine operator, I was a geologist, I have traumas, I broke bones, so you can rarely find a healthy miner. Well, lucky with miners, because when Federal Law 51, which was adopted last year regarding the mining industry, speaks about specific regulation and coal production for miners. That law allowed us, separate from other industries, in addition to other regulations, resolve issues regarding protection of miners, mining workers. After 1996, we had the 19th article that after which regards the rehabilitation of health, but it didn't function. We insist in 2019. We met with president. We underscored that norm is not applicable. In 2019, in August 2019, the president gave orders, and last year, in less than 3 years, the Ministry of Public Health issued a regulation that after what should be applicable to mining workers, because mining workers work under different conditions, and they should have specific rehabilitation facilities in order to prevent or avoid professional diseases. And Sergey Ivanovich demonstrated statistics slightly over 4,000 professional diseases a year in Russia, but I like to say the majority of them are not mining workers. 25% are mining workers. Last year, 964 were professionally ill, but if we can, some 18 months ago, it was 1,200 and 1,500. Now we produce much coal from underground, but from subsoil, but now we receive technical equipment which is better, but still. So for us it's very important to have a rehabilitation program after each shift and between shifts. Maybe mining workers are the only workers in Russia do not have a certain degree of training of people from point of view of health to work underground. We should go regular checkups, and we also examine medically. Then we have a more profound medical checkup, even less strict as for aviation industry, but still we also take into account in psychological condition. Urgently before the shift, we have medical checkup if it's necessary during the work shift, and after the shift also doctors check the medical condition. So we checked not only physical condition but also overall state of health and to what extent he is capable to perform his working obligations. We have more cardiovascular disease, for example, 52 incidents. The previous year, 26 incidents. This year we also have over 20. We have little incidents. For example, a person came healthy, and after the work in the mine, and this year we have 6 little incidents in workplace. So we pay much attention to the health, to prevention, to examination, and so on. But unfortunately, I will not discover something unusual. More often than not, we see the clash of interests of the state, of industry, of insurers. For nobody wants to spend more money on those the prophylactic and the diseases. We since 2014 now we see the improvement of economic situation. It goes without saying, but our owners, the owners of enterprises, experience difficulties with spending money, and they do not want to spend much money for insurance of diseases. They need to spend money on living conditions, so on. They do something, but for example, they introduced new air ventilator. Of course, air became better and the condition became better. However, first of all, the employer puts that ventilator in order to increase the production, and only after that it pays attention to the work, to health. For example, social insurance. They say it's their money of the employer. We say it's the money of the workers. because the workers themselves pay part of their salary for that insurance, but employ only an operator of those money. So there are always disagreements. Why it's important to maintain our position regarding distribution of money, as Sergey once said. When money are distributed according to the established titles, and for example, to social insurance, and trade unions take part in it, and all trade unions take part in assessment of it, then procure special equipment for checkup. We understand what's the situation with the matter of prevention and security of working conditions. If, for example, that billion is spent to buy, for example, a machine for production, and we say that we bought new aggregate, of course it would be better from point of vibration and noise. It also something, but we will not understand what happens to the protection and prophylaxis of health conditions. So it's very difficult to maintain our position. We are of the opinion that social insurance money should be spent only for preventive measures, for greater security in working place, of labor conditions, for assessment, for individual protection means. The second problem with us is that employers love count monies. They understand that the greatest cost for administrative overhead costs, they take into account technologies. They reduced the number of workers, especially on hazard conditions. For example, less workers, less diseases, less traumas, but now we understand on such conditions, if, for example, there should be no less than 3 persons should work in mine, then you cannot send there 2 only. For example, when something happens to a person, 2 others should remove him from that dangerous place. Now we face a very serious problem. We should send somewhere to a resort, or to take some measures, or God forbid, there is a trauma in working place, and where to find other conditions of less dangerous, hazardous working conditions. Always difficult, and we, through pilot project, make screening of diseases, of pathologies, which is necessary for preventive measures. For example, we spoke about air crews, that the employer cannot agree because should remove that work and replace him, but who will go to that instead of that? So shortage of workers themselves results in the fact that people work longer hours over time. That 6 hours underground is not a simple factor, because medical experts said that it is explained by physiology, because a certain period of time a person physical is exhausted, loss of attention, especially under hazardous conditions, and it results in tragedy and maybe other transgressions which will give lethal result. So the number of working people in the workplace should regulated strictly, and how many people should be at one working place, how should be distribute, and so such normative documents are absent. So employer himself decides how to organize the process of work, and he doesn't take into account the physiology of a person, a working man. So we seriously monitor everything, connect with the conditions of work in working place. For example, in at least Striazhная mine, we, for example, in the middle of October, Murashko signed a decree 11.30 regarding the rehabilitation and improvement of health. It simply coincides, but that decree, that order of ministry, gave us possibility to get jointly with Federal Law 1981, allowed to make prophylactics, because the prophylaxis we didn't know how to do it before, but we insist with the employer to follow that law, and we he said, how do you do that? How will you do that? Now we have that methodology. Now we are more specific, more work in the more detailed manner with examination, and after the results of checkups, after each shift, after each medical checkup, we single out a group of risks with some pathologies. We select people who have some predisposition for dynamics of increases, some deviations in health, and after the recommendation of the doctors, we send them for inter-shift rehabilitation center, because for our production now are different. However, the facilities are the same. All they are not always enough, but still we try to find where to find how to place new medical technology, medical techniques, for example, the basin for different parts of the body. And now we insist with our employer, but we should take care of the health of the workers. But plus the wages, salaries are very low. For example, average is 74,000, but starting 35 to 40. So it's very difficult to attract, for example, young men after the military service. And can you get only to 35, 40,000, especially if you're a young man and has a family and children? So it's difficult to attract young people. Young people will retire earlier than in other industries, and so little by little the number of workers in mining industry becomes less and lower. So employers are interested in the continuation of the work in spite of the peripheral diseases. And today the employers were forced to take part, to take care about, for example, SUEK company or Евраз in Raspatsk is the Kuzbas coal, Kuzbas Ugal and others to a lesser degree also started paying attention to that, and trade unions became more actively. For example, our trade union is very actively where this is that a worker came healthy and should leave the industry healthy. And maybe I should not tell that, but the level of average salary, we control that level, but we think that it's very not less important than the health of a person. But we think that an ill person goes down and will not go out. Then this year we had 2 incidents, epilepsy, and medical doctors can imagine what can happen under such conditions. I saw twice in underground in the pit when a person fall down because of epilepsy. That's a blast can happen because of that. So for us, it's very extremely important that people went down healthy and went out also healthy. So we want to take part in this pilot program. If we take our professional occupation, we have this whole bunch of diseases. Our hazardous profession is, for example, it's lung diseases, vibration, hearing ability, then many other professional occupations, for example, machines, electrical workers, and so if we take part in pilot projects, we'll be able to find optimum clinical recommendation on preventive measures, on treatment, on rehabilitation of the miners after the shift, before the shift, and because we're very hazardous conditions, the mining workers have a right for additional vacation and leave. So on our basis, we can develop further those models, which could be recommended to other industries. For example, taking into account very difficult conditions under which we work, especially on the basis of statistics, which we have in mind, have now. Once more, I'd like to recollect the number of workers, slightly over 150,000 workers, and last year 1,000 workers left that industry because of professional diseases. So I think we should explain to employers that the thesis that who will work if I will allow people go for a treatment. Don't I should explain and insist that by medical treatment, by preventive measures, we can increase their working ability and their longevity, because you'll get back longer life of the worker, and your task as the employer, improve the working conditions and increase the protection of working place. And so the employer should think not only of the profit, but also about those who work for them, and the employer should take care about the health conditions of his workers. Yes, I understand that we'll have to work. We'll have to insist. Maybe in some incidences we should apply, so to say, voluntary enforcement to make this program applicable. We understand. We at the early stage try to distinguish some indexes, some characteristics of the disease, because we know that further down we'll have problems for everybody, for the person himself, for his family, for employer, for the state. Yes, we'll work.
So we'll continue our work. The floor is given to Akuinkov Alexei Mikhailovich, Executive Director of the Association of Entrepreneurs of Mining and Metallurgical Complex of Russia, member of the Fund of Social Insurance of the Russian Federation. Present time trends in prevention of professional disease. Dear colleagues, I'd like to draw your attention to the following. I'm representing an organization which unites 10 largest enterprises of Russia, where 72% of the workers in the branch are employed. We have two wings, two sectors. Mining sector, the problems of which are less important than in coal industry, but nonetheless they are very close. And metallurgical sector, which is also has peculiar trends. It has greatly renewed during 15 years. The investments in metallurgy amounts to 2 trillions of rubles. So we have production which Europeans can envy. So the structure is sharply changed in which our workers are employed. Practically, in such professions like steel melting, furnace workers, etc., they are working precisely in the zone with the influence of harmful factors. In all other cases, they are, as a rule, in comfortable premises. The conditions are comfortable with air conditioners, TV, and a lot of computers, and the process is controlled significantly through that. But we cannot exclude the cases of injuries. We have professions which are potentially dangerous. We have mentioned electrolysis enterprises. They have very unpleasant things like fluorosis. It takes place The first place, vibration and neuritis of hearing ability are the main diseases. But now we are also following the European experience. So they should be using hearing protection, ear protection appliances. I'd like to dwell on the following. We have Law 125, which specifies the activity of insurance fund. The law is very good, and it resolves all the problem of people involved in professional disease or injury. At the same time, it has one defect, which has been noted: absence of prophylactic measures. We are working post factum. When we have an injury, person should get this or that. So let's be frank. I very well remember 2021 when this law was adopted, and I should say that the fund's work was worsened since we didn't have normative recommendations. All the issues were resolved through first instance courts. I think that the courts are working inadequately. It's my own experience in the industrial sphere. Now we don't have such problems. But during about 5 years ago, we were speaking about the necessity of introduction of certain element which would allow us to conduct prophylactic work. These are different approaches for work protection. So the problem arises. For injuries, they have different factors. I'm very much convinced, since I was working in the Soviet ministries on labor protection, and in the trade union I was technical inspector. So about 90% and even more cases of injuries are human factors. Sometimes we cannot explain why did you go there, for instance. For instance, electricians are killed in 2 cases: when they have just started working, or persons who have worked for 20 years in this sphere. So, as to professional diseases, there are also different factors. Quite frequently, we don't understand how it happens. For instance, 2 persons are working at one place. One was working for 30 years and didn't get any injuries, and the second one, during sometimes work, develops a disease. But even if we find out this disease, we cannot dismiss him from work. We have methodologies in order to find out that when such disease can be developed. And this is a very serious problem. I think that the most important thing is the pilot project has been worked out. It was first step in order to move the fund to prophylactic direction. When Ivan Ivanovich showed us that employers are struggling for the fund's money, companies are getting about 50 millions from the fund and are spending 900 millions. So they get, for instance, small amounts of money from the fund, but spending much more from their own funds. So we'll have problems. My colleagues already dwelled on such problems. 2008 and 14, the branch has been restructured. So we don't have extra surplus employees. So we cannot. So it's very difficult, for instance, to send 20 or 100 persons for rehabilitation. If more people should be sent for rehabilitation at the same time, then it's a problem. So the most important thing is that now we are working in different conditions. The value of human beings and persons into whom much money was invested, both for pilots and for employees in mining and enrichment industry. So almost all personnel has higher education. And moreover, we have Golden Fund. As a rule, all the employees were trained at the enterprise after the institute, and then sent him for 1 year abroad for training, and we invested much money into him, and that is why he is very valuable for us, and that is why we want him to work as long as possible. But there's an other side of the medal. Due to, I'll not get into details, but to treat a person from professional disease is to make for instance, after we cured the person, he will not get compensation. So we are speaking about real cases. I have such experience when a person was cured and much money was spent for his treatment. As a result, this person has become an enemy to the director because he will not get compensation. So by joint efforts with the fund, we will manage to find approaches in the companies, and we will try and prove that this is a proper approach. We have several cases. The company should have its own medical structure. So, for instance, COVID prompted us to arrange medical divisions. Availability of own medical divisions is also very important. Since the key issue is subdivision of risk groups with which we should work. There are also problems related with science and institute. So we should have criteria of assessment of professional disease. For instance, professional pathologist was made a presentation. So he said that in the north, professional disease revealed in the north was proved Only in Moscow, only one of them was surveilled. So we should note the preliminary signs of disease and symptoms of disease, and then we should take the steps in order to prolong his professional activity. So this pilot approach project allows us to do that. So we should use the ready methodics adjusted for your activities. We will jointly fulfill this work, and it will be very useful for employees and for production companies, particularly now when we are in a rather difficult situation. Thank you for attention. Thank you, Alexey Mikhailovich. I'd like to add to what your presentation. So the amendments are discussed for law 1 to 5. So I can say that it will take a long time. We met in the Commission of Ministry of Labor 7 years ago, and the necessity of resolving prophylactics of professional disease was discussed. So we were using, for substitution of this concept, with the data which were obtained by large meteorological companies. We interacted with medical centers, getting actual materials for survey. And proceeding from that, I think that this pilot project in metallurgical industry will be implemented. Speaking about prophylactic treatment of 1,000 or 100 of persons for the whole industry per year for prophylactic treatment working in harmful conditions is quite possible. So we will take all the possible efforts to improve this situation, to maintain good health of employees, so that a person will retire as a healthy person rather than disabled one in any industry. So we will move in the direction of implementation of this project. So we will have one more speaker by remote, by online presentation on interaction between Russia and Belarus Republic. Karpichenko Елена Mikhailovna, head of the insurance department and professional disease, our colleague. Can you hear us, Елена Mikhailovna? Yes, I can hear you. So the floor is given to you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have not participated in such a pilot project. I cannot add, that is why I cannot add something to this prophylactic work. So my presentation will be spontaneous. I will tell you about organization of insurance industrial injuries in Belarusian Republic. We have our own structure of this process. insurance of professional disease and injury insurance is fulfilled by Gostrach, which is involved in insurance as a sole organization. On a part with other types of voluntary and obligatory insurance on the basis of classic insurance. Financing of cases of injuries in production and professional disease. Gostrach is related with professional disease occurrence and participates in acknowledgement or non-acknowledgement of the injury, and then insurance payment, which is regulated by the government. And obligatory insurance money is used for distribution between the injury cases in certain process. And is forward to current insurance funds, future insurance payments, and there are some obligatory payments. For instance, 5% payment to preventive measures for prevention of insurance cases. So 5% is not taken by Gostrach, but is forwarding to the budget of the Republic of Belarus. And Ministry of Public Health and Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare are using this money for payment of such insurance sums. I can say that the Republic of Belarus has registered 500,000 insured, among whom are 5,000 insured, which are paying insurance payments. And the insured persons, as of late 2021, there are 3,750,000 persons. During several years, the number was reduced. Earlier, we had 4,000 insured persons, and Gostrach is getting actual injury cases of about 2,000. 2,400 in 2019, and in 2021, 2,000. So the number of such cases is reduced. And as to professional diseases, annually we are getting about 50 cases of injuries. In 2020, we had 161 cases. In 2021, 56. The figures shows that in 2020, the number of professional diseases were revealed in public health ministry. due to COVID infection?
I should say that overall, regarding the fact whether we should recognize coronavirus as professional disease, nobody argued, not by chance. And at 2020, our professional community said that person who are in personal contact with infected with COVID, that means mainly medical workers and some other categories, because of their professional occupation, are in contact with the ill persons, they should be considered as professionally suffered, professional, have a degree of professional risk of disease, and say are liable for insurance case, and so a specific document should be arranged, but it's part of this theoretical foundation. Practically, it happens that in various regions of our country, in fact, the fact that as a whole, everybody fell ill approximately in the same manner. The statistics was different. I think it depends on the person who is at the head of that subdivision, who deals with professional illnesses. In some regions there were many incidents, in some regions not at all. In 2021 overall, the number of professional diseases increased by 8 incidents and then went down. This was real when medical workers get recognition of professional disease. As a whole, the statistics and regarding professional diseases, maybe to a great degree can our Ministry of Labor present to you, because they dealt with observation, with monitoring, and they work mainly with not prevention, but on reduction of number of people working in hazardous conditions or harmful conditions, and reduction of hazardous conditions at all, to decrease the professional diseases. But I think this topic not to me, not for me. But if you have questions to me, I'll be regarding the insurance of professional diseases. I am prepared to answer. Thank you, Elena Mikhailовna. Thank you once more. So we have regular working relations between workers and companies. We regulate all aspects, and that aspect which we discuss in presentation of data jointly with you will be resolved. A separate thank to you for fruitful cooperation. The previous work, Elena told me practically everything. I did not have any doubts that we have cooperation at highest level. Thank you very much. Let's continue the work in the audience. I give the floor to Deputy Head Director of Department of Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of the Russian Federation, Brutin Alexandrovich. It's the same department with whom we work with 2020, started working with 2021, starting pilot project, which we discussed today so in details. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'd like to thank everybody, especially Sergei Ivanovich, who invited me to this conversation. I have some familiar people. Yes, how can I talk otherwise? Because we work jointly on that project. Yes, of course, the Alliance share was made by the Foundation Fund of Social Insurance. I cannot but know tremendous contribution which we made, and which was made by Sergei Mikhailovich as the first step. I remember how difficult it was to begin the work, but I doubt that we'll have some good results, especially at various instances in federal bodies. For example, it took long for us to convince some colleagues, and Elena Mikhailовna helped us as President of Industrial Medicine. We convinced many that we need that experiment. I am very much satisfied, not as a representative of Ministry of Labor, as a former worker of Fund of Social Insurance. I'm glad that we got the results that we made, and the first result was very positive. We already reported to our minister on the results of this pilot project, and then the minister put forward a task for us that we expand this project, and in the near future we should prepare a more serious regulatory foundation. It will be as a federal law which will allow to expand the pilot project with new tasks, new branches of cover, and the beginning is very good. I think we'll have the results. As a request, I'd like to underscore that our pilot project concerned not only medical and humanitarian aspects, but earlier pilot project which dealt with the interagency interaction. Actually, for the first time at the level of Ministry of Labor, we came to very good interagency coordination. We had many respondents who worked together with us, not only orally, but also included switched on the information system, we arranged a system of provisional information through the Center of Rehabilitation, which also got very rich experience. So we should single out and so on. We would like that you shared with us your considerations regarding maybe weak and stronger spheres of this project. I think with your hands, with your knowledge, with your competence, it would be very helpful. I think that I'd like that those errors and mistakes which were made at the urination phase, we excluded them and reduced to nothing. So I hope very much to get assistance from you. We still maintain our contacts. I hope that you face with attraction of new branches, so much representative, for example, our trade unions, which are present here, will get proper results, and the second phase will be more assured. Thank you. Thank you. What was said here, I'd like to add the following. As we recognize that the pilot project is being developed, then I see as a task for the nearest 2.5 months, develop jointly with the social insurers and 2 branches plus additional plus 2 branches, their representatives, their administrations, their heads, and the owners, that by September those responsible for the insurance should have a platform for discussion, inviting participants of the pilot project in order to share the most urgent problems of organizational and technical and methodological and regulatory nature, which should be resolved till the end of the 2022 in order to begin 2023 was begun with a very good coordinated program allowing to resolve the main problem of working longevity, professional longevity, and I think this will be the task for us for summer period, and by September, starting from September, with your assistant, dear colleagues, we will form the agenda for the next year, which will be traditional. I thank all those who are present, all those switch on, those who were unable to come to our session, to our meeting. I express my recognition and I express my hopes so that we will continue fruitful cooperation. I thank you for the first, second, and follow-up phases in resolving the main task. It's health of people engaged in industries and how to maintain health of our citizens. And so, well-being, and see you again. Well, our organizations tell us that we should carry out a voting process through QR code. But in this case, in order to vote for something, will you form, what will be the voting form? Through QR code, you'll get the question or the issue regarding preventive measures or prophylaxis. Okay, let's do that. So we'll carry out a vote. On the screen you'll see the results of our joint creative work. So the issue on measures of prophylaxis. What we were voting, you'll see it when you check the QR code. From employers, so not more than 3 answers to these 3 questions.
Как выберете, там наш...
After you select the question, push button answer. Can I ask organizers to put the results on the screen, the results which we have on our phones? We should do one of the issues as obligatory. It doesn't depend on your desire, on the absence of desire to have a vote.
Так, Оксана Александровна.
Oksana Alexandrovna, can you put the results on the screen? The result of the screen, or it will be distributed. Oh, okay, we'll see now. So the results of the vote, 24% for sending our workers after medical results to resource. Second, by importance after today's discussion, it's regular medical checkups. And the third in place, yes, creation of system monitoring of state of health of the workers. It's 16.5%, 16.9%. First 3, they are substantiated. That means that really implement the program of 0-point traumatism. Okay, colleagues, with this, I suggest to round up today's meeting and be prepared for the next one. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we are on time.